Everyone. Good afternoon. This is Kelly Try. I'm a member of the STS Information Literacy Committee, and I'd like to welcome Becca Greenstein, who is the STEM librarian at Northwestern University, and she will be talking to us about reframing information literacy today. And I will be monitoring the chat for questions, so I can share them with her at the end. So feel free to pop them up as you have them. And additionally, this will be posted on the STS Information Literacy Archive after the presentation. And I just put that link in the chat box. So thank you, and Becca, take it away.
Excellent. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And thank you to the STS Information Literacy Committee for hosting this webinar, and also for ACRL for all the technical logistical help. So today I'm going to be talking to you about reframing information literacy for first-year engineering students. So let's get to it. This is just a brief outline of what I'll be going through today. So I'll be talking for the first part of today's session, and then we'll open up for chat, questions, conversation, etc. I have a few suggested questions at the end, but whatever you want to talk about in relation to what I've told you, feel free. So the first thing I'll start with is an introduction to design thinking and communication, or DTC, which is the first year engineering class that I and the libraries work pretty closely with. So I'll tell you what DTC is. That'll be one part. And then I'll talk about what library support looks like for DTC and a bit of the history behind that. The next section will be about what I'm calling reframing information literacy, so just some initiatives that the libraries have worked on in the past academic year. So we've made a new guide, a new research guide. We've worked on incorporating some library skills videos into their curriculum, and those came in two parts, so I'll talk about them separately. And then the last bit there will be our research practices survey, which I'll go into more detail, so that's all I'll say about it for the moment. And then at the end, I'll discuss how we've incorporated the framework into this class using instructional design. So, and as Kelly said, feel free to put questions into the chat box as I'm going. And I hope everyone can hear me. I didn't actually check that, but cool. All right. So the first thing as I said, I'm going to give you an introduction to design thinking and communication, or DTC. So DTC is a class that is required of all McCormick first-year students. So McCormick is our engineering school, and they actually all take it twice. So half of the students take the class in the fall, the other half take the class in the winter, and then everyone takes it together in the spring. And the class is co-taught by one professor from McCormick, the engineering school, and one professor from the Cook Family Writing Program. So English and writing skills, as well as engineering and design thinking skills, are taught in this class. And I'll get more into that in a bit. And the classes are only 16 students each, so pretty small. There's a number of sections in each quarter, but this allows for pretty individualized support. And as you'll see in a minute, that's pretty important for this type of setup. So what is the class? Well, their goal is a product design for a client. So this class is focused on having students in their first year at college in an engineering program to come up with solutions to real world problems. And Northwestern has this brand called whole brain engineering. So this is using the left side of the brain, which is traditionally associated with analysis and math and logic, but also the right brain, the right side of the brain, which is traditionally associated with problem solving, metaphorical thought, and really integrating those two parts of the brain together to solve problems. So this whole process is pretty iterative. The students work very closely with the client, who is sometimes a Northwestern affiliate, but usually not, in designing some sort of product. So what do I mean by that? Well, there was one class that I worked with last winter, and I thought I would sort of talk about that project as an example so you can figure out how this plays in. So the project was an armrest storage device for a wheelchair. So what does that mean? Well, wheelchair users typically or often put their possessions in a backpack on the back of their wheelchair. and that's how they hold their things. This is a problem for two reasons. One, it might be hard for some wheelchair users to turn around and get the possessions out of that backpack. That's one problem. Another problem is that that backpack could get stolen. If it's not that secure, someone could just take it. So our client for this project wanted the students to come up with an armrest storage device so the wheelchair users could put their possessions in the armrest, have them accessible, ready to go if they need them. So this class really emphasizes group work. So the 16 students are often divided into 4 groups of 4 to talk about individual aspects of the project. And it's really focusing on communication, so both with the client and written and verbal communication. So what does the library support structure work like? Well, the library usually sends 2 librarians for each class, and we work with the students on their the research aspects of this project. So sometimes we do some sort of front of class component where we introduce the students to our catalog and the fact that you can use interlibrary loan to get things if we don't have them, and maybe some research guide and database searching. And if the groups have been designated, we will definitely split up and work with the groups individually. What I mean by that is that each group has a subtopic of the larger topic to do research on. So for example, for that armrest storage device for a wheelchair class, the subtopics were wheelchairs, wheelchair users, the Shirley Ryan Ability Lab, which is right here in Chicago, that's one of our frequent clients, and existing solutions to an armrest storage device. And for that class, my fellow librarian and I each picked 2 of the topics and work with the groups individually. And they always seem to get a lot out of it. They're always super thankful. So that's sort of DTC and what the class looks like and what the library support structure looks like. So now I'm going to get into a bit of the history of us working with DTC. So this collaboration began in the fall of 2015. This started off with 2 librarians, our engineering librarian and one of our business librarians, but this has since expanded to be a lot more interdisciplinary. For example, our Latin American Studies librarian is one of our frequent DTC supporters, as is our liaison for religion and linguistics. So it's not just the STEM or science librarians, anyone can help. And this really works because we approach this class really based on problem solving. So it's not, you don't really have to know the content that well to help these students. If you, as a librarian, know how to search a database, know how to use keywords, how to narrow searches, you're fine. Some people kind of get scared, oh, science, oh no, but really we are helpful and they find it helpful. One thing that we've learned is that you do sort of have to figure out what to anticipate in the different sessions. What the individual DTC assignments will vary professor by professor and class by class. So there's a fair bit of communication before the classes that always happens. And then here are some statistics about the different classes that we've met with. So you can see it's basically increased throughout the years. I will say that I started working at Northwestern in July of 2017. So the first 2 years of DTC support, I wasn't here. So all of the beginning stuff I'm saying, I've learned from other people. And if you want more about the history, I'm happy to get that, but this is all hearsay. So I do want to note that in the spring of 2018, there's 10 with an asterisk. 2 of those 10 sections were out of class consults, so the professors didn't want to take up class time, so they had students meet with librarians separately. And then this past winter quarter, actually we are currently in exam week, so this is currently winter quarter of 2019. We had 6 sections scheduled, but 3 got canceled because we experienced a polar vortex and campus was closed, so classes were canceled. So we should have done 6, but we only ended up doing 3, so that number's a bit low. And we're about to start spring 2019, so I don't know how many sections we'll meet with, but hopefully a fair number. Like I said, there are twice as many sections in the spring as in the fall and winter, so it makes sense that those numbers tend to be a bit bigger. And I will also say that this doesn't include research consultations, so one-on-one help, nor does it include answering questions by email. So I'm on our DTC research guide, so I tend to get students from many DTC sections email me and ask either to meet or just for help via email. So those stats aren't on that list, but you can see it's pretty robust. We certainly hope so. Okay, so now that I've introduced you to DTC and the library support history, I'm going to be talking a bit about how we've reframed information literacy. So the first thing we did was to update our research guide. So when I started, the research guide had a ton of information and a lot of tabs, and it was very helpful. It had a ton of good information, but it was a bit, in some cases, over the heads of the first-year students. So remember, these are fall term freshmen in some cases. They might not have ever heard of an academic database. So over last summer, in consult with the DTC professors, I developed a new research guide, and you can see a screenshot of the guide on this slide. So I purposely made fewer tabs. So there's only 4 tabs, as you can see. The Find Articles tab does have a drop-down, but I want to streamline the information as much as possible. And one other tactic I took was to organize the information by topic rather than by type. So the old guide had an articles tab, so it had a lot of databases, and then a books tab, so it had tips for searching our catalog for books. There was a safety tab, so information about safety, etc. Here, what I've tried to do is separate the information by topic. So you can see in the education and schools box, I have directions that say if your topic relates to education and schools, try one of these 2 databases, and really separate it by topic, not type of information. A few other things I've done were to shorten the database descriptions. So for anyone who uses the LibGuides platform, you can as you probably know, you can plug in sort of standard database descriptions and have those be the standard, which works for upper level or graduate students, but for first years, they don't want that much information. So I customized all the database descriptions on here so that it's really just what they need to know. And the other thing I did, as I've sort of mentioned already, was to include instructions. So, the education and schools box tells sort of direct students for what to do if their topic relates to education and schools. So I hope that, actually, I know that the guide's been helpful because people have commented on it, and we can see the views, which are pretty high, which is good. So that is one thing that we've done this year. And as I said, I created this guide last summer, so it went live in the fall of 2018. So the spring quarter will be the 3rd quarter that we're using this guide. Okay, the next thing. Oh, and I guess I should say, lower right-hand corner of this slide, I have the link to the guide if you want to refer back to it. Okay. The next thing that we've done was to incorporate some videos into the DTC Canvas site. So Canvas is our course management system. So this came about because one of our librarians here had said that, well, in addition to the individual group DTC classes, like those small groups, they also have this big lecture session every week. And we thought, well, that's great. One of us could go to that big lecture session and give them some sort of, library basics, website, research guide, searching, ILL, that type of thing, all at once, and they could get all the information at once. But when I met with the DTC coordinators over this past summer, they said, well, great idea, but that session is really more for the students to be exposed to real-life design thinkers, real-life innovators and entrepreneurs. So we don't actually have time because all the sessions are booked. And we said, oh no, what else can we do? So our solution to this was to incorporate some information into the DTC Canvas site. So Canvas is our course management system. So as you can see, there's a link to the library guide, and then 5 of our library skills videos, and these already existed. I did not create these, but these are topics, as you can see from the hyperlinks below, are sort of basic library skills that we think everyone should have. And the goal of this was to have equitable access to information as possible. So all the DTC students have an assignment to look through these resources, and which is hopefully helpful to them. Um, and yeah, and this is integrated into the Canvas sites for fall, winter, and now spring. So, and yeah, and we started in the fall 2018. Okay, and then the next thing, so this is videos part one. Videos part two is a bit more specific. So as I was developing the guide, I think it was, I realized that patents and standards were two of the tabs on the old guide, and these types of information can be a bit confusing to first year students. They're very useful for their projects, right? Because they're trying to design a new product, and that they want to know, has someone else created something like this? What are the standards in place to make sure it's safe for people to use? But it might be hard for first years to understand this type of thing. So I thought it would be a good idea to have videos specifically targeted at DTC students for them to understand patents and standards. So you can see a screenshot of the video for the patents video on this slide. And I made both of the videos using a tool called the Lightboard, which is a teaching tool. You can use it to record videos. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty of the Lightboard, but I have more information about it later in the session. What you should know for now is that, yeah, so there's a link for information in the last slide. And when I made these videos, I really tried to use the instructional design process like I would for a class. I realized they're videos, but it was helpful. So I started with learning outcomes. So what do I want the students to learn, to know after they watch the videos? So that was, what are patents? Where can I find patents? And why are they useful for my DTC project? And you can see I've written those questions on the board. So those were the learning outcomes. And that was really helpful as I developed the script for this video and filmed it. A bit more about the video itself. So with the Lightboard, you can incorporate you can incorporate PowerPoint slides, and you can also write on the board. So that's just a screenshot of the Patent Standards and Safety tab of the DTC guide. And the links down at the bottom, these are for the Patents and Standards videos. The one that's bolded is for the patents video. So those are those videos. They are currently integrated on the DTC research guide. We're working on assessment for those. The spring version of the research practices survey has some questions about patents and standards, and I'll get into more about that in a second. And we're still trying to figure out if the videos will be required viewing or not. Assessment-wise, so far, I looked yesterday, and the patents one had 26 views, and the standards one had 21 views. Again, I have no idea who's watching those videos, but those are the numbers we have. Okay, so I just alluded to the research practices survey again, so I'll talk about that a bit in more detail. Hang on one second. Okay, so we fielded this research practices survey twice, and it will be fielded again in the spring now. So this was something that our instruction and curriculum support department, which I'm part of, started this year. So we wanted to learn the research background of students when they arrive at Northwestern. So in the fall version went to both DTC and first year seminar students who were in the College of Arts and Sciences. Everything was totally anonymous. All we had was the timestamp. And the goal was for us to help the students, help us teach you better, help us get you better at using library resources. So I'm going to show you a few of the questions that we fielded, so you'll be able to see the type of thing that we asked. So this first one, we gave the students a citation for a journal article, which was co-authored by our university president, and asked them what type of source it was. And this was multiple choice, so they got the 4 answers that you see below. And as you can see, most of them got it right. 77% of them got it right, which is great. We thought that maybe if they picked book, they stopped reading after the title. Book chapter makes a bit more sense because they are looking at parts of things. So that was one of the questions. And then the very next question after that was if we asked them if they wanted to find more sources like the one that we just gave them, what search keywords would they use? So there were, again, this was multiple choice, again, 4 answers. Only 3 show up because the very last answer was teachers teaching students, and only 1 person picked that one. So you can see a tiny sliver on the slide here, but that choice didn't show up. So you can see that only 23% of the students got it right. So this is professors and instruction skills was what we thought was the correct answer. The other options are really just copying and pasting things into Google. So tenure track professors was lifted from the article, and then 14% of them picked that entire article titled name. So as you can see, they're not thinking of synonyms and abstracting. They are not strategically searching, as you might say. And in one question before, which I'm not showing you just for interest of time, we asked them what was the most difficult task of the longest research paper they've ever written, and very few of them said they had trouble using keywords, which we know is wrong because we know they're not using keywords to their full effectiveness. But anyway, they're 18. What do they know? So again, we fielded this research practices survey for both Fall DTC and Winter DTC, and we have a new updated version that will be embedded in the Canvas sites for the Spring DTC. So those results will hopefully be interesting. All right. So the last section of the talk will be about incorporating the framework. So a group of us here at Northwestern went to an ACRL framework conference put on by Carly, which is our academic library group. So this was about both using the framework and instructional design. So step 1 of that process is to identify desired results. And this information is taken from a training that we did for library staff right after a few months after we got back. And we actually gave them the example of the armrest storage device for wheelchairs and asked them, how would you plan this lesson using the instructional design techniques? Pretend you had 60 minutes with the entire class, which isn't actually the case of how DTC normally functions, but pipe dreams. This was the example that I worked through as a way to work with this class and the framework and instructional design. So again, step 1 is to identify desired results. The first step is to think of enduring understandings, which are pretty broad strokes skills. So I lifted these right from the framework. So the first one that I thought of that would be applicable to DTC was information creation as a process. So students will be able to transfer knowledge of capabilities and constraints to new types of information products. So patents, they are literally making a new product. And the second one was research as inquiry. And part of that frame is that students will be able to synthesize ideas, gather from multiple sources. So those were the enduring understandings, the very big picture ideas. So the next part of the ID process is to come up with essential questions. So based on those overarching frames, what questions are they going to ask? So this is sort of putting yourself in the brain of a student. So the first for ICP, I thought of what is a patent and where can I find them? And for RI, I thought of what different types of information sources are there and where can I find them? So then based on those essential questions, we then come up with knowledge, skills, and values. So these are sort of your learning goals. This is what we would like to happen in your session. So for ICP, students will be able to define patent and identify relevant databases to find them. And for RI, students will recognize the information from multiple sources and help them answer their research questions and identify those databases. So this is step 1. What are the results that I'd like? Again, using the framework and the ID process. So step 2 is to figure out assessment and acceptable evidence. Um, how are you going to assess if the students have learned the information that you've given them? So one of my acceptable evidences was that the students will pay attention to the demo that we do in class. And this is an example of formative assessment. So this is something that we do in class. It's pretty short. It's not very involved. This is just me observing, or me or the instructor, I should say. The second one was participation in the group work activity that I would have them do in this session. Again, formative, pretty bare bones, not deep at all. But then the last one is what's called summative. So this is end of the quarter, end of the semester, can the students synthesize what you've told them? So this is incorporate 3 or more sources into their final report. Like I said, they're doing some sort of lit review, gathering information about their specific topic. And the picture here is from the DTC project fair. This was a few years ago. Then students will show the project that they've come up with to clients, interested people on campus. So a tool here is a pool loop. So this is a tool or a device to help children swim who have trouble holding their heads up. And they're demonstrating their project there. Okay, so the next slide, sorry. Okay, so the very last step is to plan the learning activity. So for information creation as process, the learning activity would be to ask students to define patent and demonstrate how to use Innovation Q Plus, which is one of our patent databases. And for researchers' inquiry, I was going to flip the classroom a bit and have them do a pre-class assignment to list as many information sources as they can. To sort of get them thinking what types of information sources are out there. And then during class, show them that information sources can be found in different places, and show them to use some database filters. So that was how I've incorporated the framework into this class. I haven't used this exact class plan in a class, but I've definitely taken bits from it. As you can see, we're talking about patents, we're talking about different types of databases. So that is what's happened. So the next slide is some discussion questions that I've come up with, but I don't want to, I'm going to flip away from these really, really quickly because I don't want to forget that I also have some links for more information here. So we'll go back to the discussion questions in a second. But I do want to show you the McCormick to the Engineering School DTC page. So if you're interested in learning more information about design thinking and communication, the class itself, different projects that have happened, there's a link to that. The second link down is there's a post on our a library blog about library DTC support that I wrote with one of our marketing and communication specialists. And some of the information that I've told you is in there, but there's also some more information, a specific story about my work with one specific student. So if you'd like to check that out. The third link is if you'd like more information about the Lightboard. This was the tool that I used to make the patents and standards videos. I did a presentation about the Lightboard at Stella, which is an own conference, which you all should go to because it's excellent. That was just a lightning talk, so I created a handout with information about the Lightboard. So that's there. And then the last link is to our Teaching with the Libraries site. So this is a new website that we have about basically requesting instruction, hoping that faculty and students see the value of library instruction so that they invite us back. And on that page are some student testimonials. And these are quotes from DTC students from that research practices survey. And I think they're from the hardest task, the most difficult task question, where we asked them to say what was the most difficult part of writing a paper. So just trying to demonstrate the value of library instruction. Okay, so just so you know that is there, I'm going to go back to those chat questions now. Okay, so these are the discussion questions that I came up with based on the information I gave you. Happy to talk about these and or other ones, or if you have any questions that have come up during the presentation, I'm happy to answer those as well. Thank you. Kelly, were there any questions during the presentation?
Yeah, the main one was Margaret Phillips, and she was asking about the videos, particularly that you mentioned about patents and standards, whether they were openly available anywhere outside of Canvas.
Yes, the patents and standards ones are on YouTube on the research guide, and then the library skills videos that we embedded in Canvas are also on YouTube. So I can send the links to those if you'd like.
Looks like,
Cool.
yeah. And that was the only question until right now when everybody's typing.
Okay. I'm gonna have a drink of water really quickly, but keep typing your questions. Okay, I see a question. Did the students want to use Google Patents? Um, yeah, they did, but also their faculty definitely asked me at one point, what's the value of a database like Innovation Q Plus? So at one point, actually, I've done this twice. I went into a DTC faculty meeting to talk about the changes that we've made, and the second time um, uh, was to talk about the results of the research practices survey. So I had a professor ask, why not just use Google Patents? And I had to explain, well, the databases are able to filter and they're not tracking you and all the sorts of things that we know. One thing I forgot to say with the framework bit was information has value is another very valuable frame, which relates to that example of searching for patents in Google versus using databases. So, yeah. Someone's asking if the slides will be available to us. I think so. Kelly, can you confirm? I hope so.
Yes, I was double checking. They should, yes, be available to you. Yes, we get the chat slides up as well on that archive link.
So I'm seeing someone created a course guide for their statistics first year seminar and, yep, first year design courses. Excellent. So I'm not the only one to do this. This is great. Yep, and University of Cincinnati, Science and Engineering Librarians with their first year engineering program. Excellent. Yeah, great. I will say that the videos took me a lot longer than I thought they would. I made sort of an introductory video using the whiteboard, just like the whiteboard is in Mud Library and you can come use it. And that was at the beginning of when we first installed it. Um, but yeah, that 90 seconds took hours and hours to record. And these, I don't know, I think one thing that was hard for me about making these was that I hadn't really worked with patents or standards until I got to this job. So I wrote the script and it was hard for me to not read off the script. So I kind of sound like a robot for some of them. You're welcome to watch and kind of critique my robotness. But that took a really long time for me to get used to reading the content and not having to, read off the script constantly. So that's definitely one thing to keep in mind if you're talking about something that's pretty new to you.
Hey, I responded to a question in chat, but yeah, the first link I shared on the STS LibGuide page, which is hosted by IU, it appears that on the archive of the chat, if you click the drop down when you hover, that will take you to the different information in the slides. If you click that top link that says archive of the chat and then you try to click on the link on the page, it will prompt you to log into LibApp. So that seems to be an error that I will take back to the committee.
Someone's asked if we've seen any impact from offering this class on information literacy and during later years. That's a good question. I haven't actually done, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I haven't done instruction for upper level engineering classes despite my best attempts to. So I haven't, but I can certainly talk to our engineering librarian to see if she's seen this. Like I said, this sort of new reframing has happened only this year, but I would be interested to see maybe 2 years when these first years are when these current first years are juniors, do professors see increases in information literacy? I hope so. Callie's asking, ooh, building trust. Yeah, that's a great question. So when I started, I was liaison to math, stats, electrical engineering, and computer science, and applied math. And my background's in biology, so not any of those fields. So I really had to start from the ground up because this is my first job out of library school. That's something else that's important to say. So I had no experience as an academic liaison. But starting in January, I switched with what departments I have. So I now have the biological sciences and biomedical engineering, which is way more in my wheelhouse. So I found it a lot easier to connect with those faculty, and I've done a few instruction sessions and haven't had to look up every single term that I'm using, which is great. I will say, and people have told me this, that I'm not scared of science because there's, I do have that science background. So I feel like some people, some of the other librarians might be scared to work with these classes because they don't have a STEM background. But look, like I said before, it's really about the problem-solving approach and just knowing how to use databases. So I hope that helps. Oh, yay. Yeah, you're welcome. I'm happy to also talk offline if that would be helpful, Kelly. Cool. Working on assessment for the videos. Yeah, so for our spring research practices survey, this one's just for DTC, not for the first year seminars. We have questions about if the students, okay, do I have this open? Hang on one second. No, I don't have it open. Oh, no, I do, it's over here. So one of the questions is, did you search for patents for your DTC1 project? And if they did, were they able to find useful patents? And then for all of them, we're asking in what ways are patents useful? So one thing I thought was maybe if they sort of echo the language from the videos, maybe they think, oh crap, I forget what the patent is, they might go back to the video. I don't actually know. Again, I'm hoping these will be required material in DTC2. So hopefully we'd see some more lit reviews that incorporate patents and their standards than in DTC1. But again, we'll have to wait and see. You're welcome. Oh, yeah. English major turned engineering librarian. Excellent. Evans asked what the difference is between the first and second DTC class. Yeah, good question. So the framework is the same, such that they're solving some sort of design project. They have a or multiple real world problems. One thing that I've noticed, and again, I've only been here for one spring, so I'm not sure if this is consistent, but for the DTC in the fall or winter, the entire class will be working on the same project. So the entire class will be solving that armrest storage device problem. Whereas in the spring, the classes tend to have multiple projects each, and I tend to be maybe I guess a lot of the fall and winter classes tend to be medical devices. So something I forgot to say is on the guide under that find articles drop down, there's a whole tab for medical devices and finding medical device articles, and which is really helpful for fall and winter. But in the spring, they have sort of more varied projects. Let's see if I can think of one. One class I worked with was sort of redesigning an elementary school cafeteria to help with like flow, to like get the students to the line faster, and to help with sustainability, to try and help the school compost. So just sort of more abstract problems that aren't necessarily medical devices. And I'm assuming that the professors are expecting higher level work from them because they've already done this once. They know how to work with clients. They know how they hopefully know how to use library resources. So um, similar information, but as a slightly higher level. Excellent. I love when that makes sense. Any other questions?
Thank you
I'm
very
also
much,
happy.
Becca, for presenting.
Yeah, yeah. I'm happy to talk via email as well if you need information. Yeah.
And yes, I sent an email to the listserv with the corrected link with the new LibGuide for the STS chat, where all the slides and everything will go after this. So thank you all very much for attending, and thanks again, Becca, for presenting.
Thank you for having me.